Good evening.
Hello, panel. Should we be using more MOD barracks to house asylum seekers?
Thank you. It's been reported this week that Cameron Barracks in Inverness will be used to house up to 300 asylum seekers as part of government moves to take them out of hotels where we spent £2 billion last year. Graham Simpson, do you agree with this proposal?
I think it's a concerning proposal because of where the barracks are. They're quite central in Inverness. I think it'd be more appropriate if it was further out, but it's not. So I think there's a danger in Inverness where if you have 300 males coming to the city damaging social cohesion. I think what this highlights is there is an issue with the numbers of largely illegal immigrants coming into the UK, and that's that needs to be tackled.
So where do you think these people should be housed?
Well, they shouldn't be in hotels.
People who are seeking asylum.
I'm not against the use of barracks, but I think the issue in Inverness.
Don't shout out! Don't shout out, please. Put your hands up, and I'll come to you in a second.
A couple of issues with what's happening in Inverness is one. Nobody was told about it. The local council wasn't told. The Scottish Government wasn't told. I think both of those organisations should have been. The amount of money it's going to cost and the location. So I can see problems arising.
Okay, let me hear from the audience. Lady at the back first.
Maybe I shouldn't speak because, Graham, some people in your party would not like to see me on their tellies. And I also have, thank you. I also have a typical Bollywood accent, so they may not like to hear me as well. This kind of rhetoric that your party is putting forward is causing so much of bigotry in the society that it's hard to swallow, at least for me. I've been a lecturer, my daughter is a doctor, so you don't want us here, do you?
That's completely untrue.
What? There's so many hands up in the audience. Young lady in the middle. On you go.
Now, I'm appalled from what you said. I'm international myself. I was integrated into this community. Why? I'd never had to face any challenges. Why? Because of my skin color. I'm very aware of that. I am white. I come Central European country. I have a lot of friends who haven't had the chance to be integrated as such. What we should do with these people is give them the chance to be part of the community, not in barracks, not in hotels, but actually allow them to build their lives in this country. That I got a chance to do it.
Thank you. Man on the second back row. Yeah, on you go.
It's hard to understand the imposition that the UK government's put on the people of Scotland without any consultation. As was mentioned before, there was no consultation with the local government at Inverness. There was no consultation at Holyrood. And I believe they're supposed to be moving in a month's time. That camp ain't going to be ready. After today was launched a £1 million regeneration programme looking for contractors to build it and to make it safe and make it clean again. That ain't going to happen in 1 month's time.
Thank you.
This has become immigration. It never really was an issue with Scots until quite recently, and now it's the third most important issue in a recent poll. Now, you would not have expected that even a couple of years ago. But that's the reality. And the reason is because cities like Glasgow, for example, are having to cope with large numbers of people coming in. And Glasgow City Council, SNP run, is saying, well, actually, we can't cope. And there's a financial problem there. So that's not racist to say that. That's just a numbers game. And, we have to accept that the numbers coming in to the UK and to Scotland, it is causing issues. And you've had protests.
Working as doctors,
you've had protests in Aberdeen. You've had protests in Falkirk.
Providing amazing public services.
That's the reality. So it has to be tackled.
Okay, Kirsty, I guess the difference we're talking about here is about controlled immigration and uncontrolled immigration. Do you accept that?
So I think actually talking specifically about the barracks, and the question about the barracks is the Home Office makes these decisions. It doesn't do consultation. So the Scottish Government wrote to the Home Secretary in September, asked for a meeting with the Home Secretary, has not had a reply yet on this issue. So I think the communication has been incredibly poor. It's exactly the same in all the decisions that have been made in Aberdeen. The Home Office does not consult with the local area, just expects the local area to be able to stand up and provide the services that are required, and then doesn't fund them to provide those services either. The UK government needs to speed up its decision-making process for asylum seekers, because people being in hotels for an extended period of time is bad for everybody. It's bad for the people in hotels. It's bad for folk that are having to provide the services. It's bad for the public purse.
So where should these people be housed?
Well, what I think they should do is they should make decisions quicker. They should have safe and legal routes for people to come, and they should make quick decisions rather than having this massive backlog.
Paul Sweeney, you're a Glasgow MSP. Susan Aitken, council leader in Glasgow, has said that social services and housing are struggling to cope with the numbers being sent by the Home Office to Glasgow.
So we have around 4,000 to 5,000 people seeking asylum in Glasgow. That represents about 95% of people seeking asylum in Scotland. So as a population of 5.5 million, it's a relatively small number of people, but nonetheless, there are significant challenges with accommodation, and we've known the Tory contracts for asylum, which are given to big private companies, are very profitable and often associated with Tory donors. You know, presumably when Graham was a Tory MSP 5 minutes ago, he was gleefully supportive of everything that the Tories were doing in regards to that, and these asylum contracts, the Serco and Mears, etc. The issue is, how do you transition? Because there's been a huge glut of asylum seekers stock in the system for years because the Tories shut down processing claims pretty much. So we had a huge backlog of people built up. The Labour government, when it came in, has massively increased the processing of the claims, try and get things back onto an even keel. But that is generating more people who have then got refugee status, who then have to transition from a standing start pretty much, because they haven't had the right to work, they haven't had the right to social security, to then build a life. Very difficult to do that in a matter of a month or so. So that's produced a lot of pressure on homelessness services and housing pressure. So we need to join this system up across the UK and at every level of government. We do have pressure on hotels. Hotels are really expensive. So, you know, renting at a Marriott for months on end to house people seeking asylum isn't necessarily...
£6 million a day.
Yes, very, very expensive. So that's why the government's been looking at alternative estates such as Cameron Barracks. We actually spent 2 months as a 17-year-old as an army reservist doing my basic training. So I'm familiar with the place. I think it is actually well integrated. It's right next to the Raigmore Hospital. It's well placed relative to services that can support people there. It will be far cheaper than housing people in hotels. It can be adapted relatively quickly. We do need to be honest about the scale of the challenge. Even when I was in Berlin over the summer, the old Tempelhof airport was covered in caravans because there were people seeking asylum who were being housed there. So this German government's got, they actually take on far more asylum seekers than Britain does. So, a lot of countries in Europe are dealing with these challenges, but certainly the legacy of the Conservatives and having gummed up the system for years on end has been shocking. It's bad for the society. It's creating tensions because people are stuck in limbo. They can't work. They can't move on with their lives. They're usually very motivated people who just want to get on and build their lives again after a shattering experience. And they're being forced into this system of purgatory. And it's costing us a fortune keeping people stuck in hotels. But the beneficiaries are the large companies that have got these asylum contracts. I'm hoping next year, according to the recent inquiry by the House of Commons Committee, we should really look at these break clauses next year to terminate these contracts and transition them into local authorities taking the lead and actually building those relationships that was mentioned with local government, so we can actually make sure that the asylum accommodation and the refugee accommodation and transitioning to mainstream housing can be all joined up, and then the money flows into investing in new housing capacity.
We're told this is going to be a big issue for voters next May at Holyrood. Let's find out. Lady in the front row here.
With regard specifically to net migration, I'd like to ask all the panel, but specifically Kirsty Blackman, who's my MP that I didn't vote for, and for this gentleman representing Reform. Under Theresa May as Home Secretary from 2010 to 2016, some of the most draconian immigration restrictions were introduced in this country. Quite rightly, the Windrush generation were offered reparations for the manner in which their lives were tossed completely upside down. However, the income threshold for British citizens looking to invite and sponsor their non-EU spouses in this country has not been removed and is now currently possibly going to be increased to the level that 70% of the workers in this country would not be able to reach. In 2013, I gave birth to a beautiful baby boy who was born of me and his father, who comes from Chile, who is obviously not European. It took me 2 years to leave this country and come back when I had finally fought for his legal right to stay in this country with his British-born son and then wife, who is also British-born with British-born parents. What would you say to my 12-year-old son, who's not far from where we are now, in a chess competition, if you were to ask you the question, why wasn't I allowed to live in the country that my mother was born in and gave birth to me in, just because of your obsession with reducing net immigration to the point of destroying tens of thousands of families' lives?
Okay. Thank you for sharing your story. Kirsty Blackman?
I mean, we assist people with visa queries all of the time. We very much disagree with the changes that are being put in order to increase the length of time that people have got to stay before they can apply for indefinite leave to remain. We disagree strongly with the increase in the salary thresholds that are being put in. One of the most heartbreaking issues I see on a regular basis is people in really similar situations around trying to get their spouse to come and live here, trying to get a partner that they've met in another country. In fact, even I had somebody recently whose partner lives in another country who is not allowed to visit because they don't believe that she'll go back to her other country where she lives with her son. So the immigration system, and I agree with you entirely, Theresa May was the most anti-immigration prime minister we had by that stage.
I need to get round. There's so many hands up on this in the audience. Kirsty, I'm sure we'll speak to you about this at the end. Lady with the glasses in the middle. Yes, on you go.
Hi there. So I am a secondary school teacher in a local school, and I am seeing an increasing amount of this anti-migrant, anti-immigration rhetoric in my classroom. At the same time, within my classroom, I have children who have fled war zones, children who've fled countries, and horrendous situations. What would you guys say in that situation, speaking to that classroom?
Alexander Burnett.
Well, I think we talked about people coming up on the doors of what people think about migration. It is the #1 issue that people speak to me about.
The #1 issue?
Yeah, I will go out, even in Aberdeenshire, and it's not so much just straight immigration, it's effect it has on public services, and we talked about public services earlier. So when we see people's GP appointments and the like, people getting harder to get appointments, people understand that this is the cause of it.
It's not.
So there's obviously difficult conversations in classrooms to try and explain.
You could start by telling truth to folk.
1 in 5 NHS workers.
Are immigrants to this country being blamed for things they are not responsible for?
I think some of it's indirectly. I think the fault lies with the SNP, but in Scotland, where we see public services hollowed out. So when you're moving asylum seekers up to Inverness, you have to understand that when the Raigmore Hospital was mentioned, there are severe difficulties with rural healthcare across Scotland, and that has been down to the 18 years of the SNP government. And to go and put 300 additional people, asylum seekers, on the Raigmore books. When you look at policing up there, I think there are 6 police on duty in Inverness on an evening. And so these additional pressures on our services are going to have a major impact.
Donna, we've got a falling population here in Scotland. Migrant workers and immigrants to this country have been the backbone of many industries here. How do we get this balance right?
It's really interesting. I'm an immigrant. I wasn't born in Scotland, that's the definition. I was born in Bristol and moved here, or family moved here when I was young. In Aberdeen and in Scotland, we have a declining and aging population. We require immigration. The challenge I have is the rhetoric from all the parties and the media now is that you cannot have a nuanced, sensible conversation. If you want social care, I have a team of 20 care-at-home workers 75% of them are general overseas migrant workers because I cannot get a local labour force. Why? Because it is a physically, emotionally demanding job on real living wage. It's an absolute privilege to be at somebody's home giving end-of-life care. They are some of the most amazing workers. We all want social care. We all want NHS. We can't do that without immigration, but we can no longer have a sensible conversation because it's just lumped in with everything else. You know, so we've got extreme views on all sides, and it makes it really difficult when you're actually trying to deliver services that are key to society. So I agree with the lady, you know, I can no longer employ social care workers because the visas are no longer skill demand, because of the threshold of the salaries. As a charity, we can no longer do that. So what happens if they leave and I can't replace? I can no longer provide social care to citizens of Aberdeen? What other choice do I have? So I think there has to be a responsibility to all parties and the media to take the heat out of this and have a sensible conversation. My concern is we've gone past that.
You think?
I think you can tell by the discussions here tonight, you know, it's really, really difficult.
Well, let's dig into it. Man in the third row. Yeah.
I'm also a secondary school teacher, and I echo what the lady behind me says. The rhetoric from reform is coming into the classrooms now. As a teacher, I'm seeing children become increasingly racist, seeing comments where we've got children that have come from asylum, war-torn countries, and it's getting toxic and toxic when this shouldn't be coming into the classroom. It shouldn't be toxic. We should be welcoming these people. They're here to make our classrooms more diverse.
And that's a change. It didn't used to be that way.
I've got kids coming out saying, I'm going to vote reform, you need to get out of the country. That's kids saying that because they're hearing this, they're seeing it on social media, the rhetoric coming from people like reform.
Graham Simpson?
Well,
are you stoking division here?
No, I'm not. I'm definitely not. No.
He just wants to keep his job next year.
No, absolutely not. I'm not a racist. I can promise you that. I think this is actually quite a complicated discussion, and I was struck by the lady there who gave us her very heartfelt story. And I heard a similar story recently from actually a Reform member who is married to a Nigerian man who you know, has had the same
Let's
issues.
cut to the chase. The birth rate in Scotland is falling. So for our population to continue to grow and for us to fill the jobs that we need migration, don't we?
I've always been clear. I spoke in a debate on immigration when I was in the Conservative Party, and I was very clear. We've always had immigration. We always will have immigration. And, you know, every country needs some immigration. This isn't about should we have immigration or not. It is about the sheer numbers and the sheer numbers of illegal immigrants coming into the country.
But that man says the conversation around this has reached a heat, and Donna says that as well, which is becoming an issue. Do you accept that?
Well, if that's, I have to accept. If a teacher is telling me that's what's going on in the classroom, then it shouldn't be. And if people like me have to take a responsibility for that, then fair enough. That shouldn't be happening. There should not be racism or racist comments going on in the classroom or anywhere. This isn't an issue. This isn't about racism. It is about numbers.
Let me hear from the audience. Lady towards the back, second from the back in the check shirt. Yes, on you go.
Thank you. I want to come back to something that you said earlier about Scotland always used to be inviting for immigrants and asylum seekers. Well, I actually think that they still are, and I think actually it's only since Nigel Farage, and whether he was the UKIP, Brexit, or now Reform Party, crossed the border, that's when it started to rise its ugly head. And I'm sorry, but I find it really distressing that the conversation is turned so much to illegal immigration and asylum seekers in this country, because they are very welcoming, and I'm glad that I'm here.
Final voice on this. Man on the front row down here.
not only classroom the racism happening, it is happening on the road, it is happening on the any institution.
Have you experienced it?
Sorry?
Have you experienced it
Yes,
yourself?
I got abused many times. My wife got, my children got. We are asylum seeker. Go away from your country, from this country. Go your country. Government should take the strong hand. You should not do it, and you should not show the flag. You are go away. We are British. We are Scottish. We are Aberdonian. No, everybody Aberdonian. My children actually born brought up here, and getting problem. They are over 30 years getting problem. This is why my son, thanks God, he was one of the talent people in Scotland. It came to the many papers. He is actually getting problem. This is why he gone to other country for the job. He was doing actually very good job here.
So you think the government need to really
yes,
be much stronger on
take
this?
The strong hand, the implementation of the racism, because racism not only direct racism direct, indirect, hidden, affirmative, four kinds of racism.
Okay, all right.
So government only looking the direct.
Okay.
Now direct also not implemented.
Okay.
So this is the problem.
We hear you loud and clear.